Welcome to the future of web design. In 2025, websites aren't just static pages anymore. They're immersive, interactive, and packed with stunning 3D elements. From mind-blowing animations to seamless user experiences, modern design is evolving faster than ever. In this video, I'll show you how to bring your web projects to life with cutting-edge design trends and 3D magic. This 3D design was originally created by Tim Quirino and published in the Spline community. I've made some modifications to better align it with our design, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how to do the same. Our 3D portfolio includes an exciting interactive feature. Hover over one of these moons, and a video element appears. Click on it, and my YouTube channel opens in a new browser tab. But don't worry, I'll walk you through the entire process so you can easily customize it to link to your own projects, portfolio, or social media. I'll also guide you through customizing colors and other design elements. And with Spline, you have complete creative control over nearly every aspect of your design. Of course, everything is fully responsive across all screen sizes. I have deployed this project and included the link below in the description box so you can view the live version. Now, you assume it's going to be difficult and overwhelming? Wrong. Your brain is wired for comfort. The moment it encounters something unfamiliar, it tries to talk you out of it. Remember when JavaScript seemed like an unsolvable mystery? And yet, here you are. Keep pushing and soon, this will feel just as natural. To kick off this project, I've already set up a basic structure for our files. You can get everything you need from the GitHub repository. I've included the link in the description below. Once you're there, consider giving it a star to support the project. From the repository, click on the source files, where you'll find index.html and style.css. Download both files, move them into a folder, and then drag and drop that folder into your code editor of choice. Now, let's take a quick look at what we have. Our HTML file has a simple structure, and we've already linked the CSS file inside the head section. Speaking of CSS, we've set up a gradient background, which you'll see when you open the HTML file in your browser. If you'd like to customize this gradient, you can use gradient.io, just search for it on Google. This tool allows you to select linear or radial gradients and customize the colors. Once you're happy with your selection, it'll generate the CSS code, which you can simply copy and paste into the body element in your CSS file. This is especially useful if you plan to change the color of the 3D planet, as it lets you match the background for a more cohesive look. Now that we have our setup ready, let's move on and start building the header section. Inside the body tag, create a header element. Within this header, we'll add a div with a class name of logo, where you can place your logo or simply use your name as text. Below this, we'll add a button element with the class name contactBTN, containing the text contact. This will serve as our call to action button. With the HTML in place, let's move on to styling. First, we'll set the text color to white and apply a 3rem padding to the body to give it some space around the edges. Next, we'll reset some of the default styles that browsers apply, like margin and padding, so we have a clean slate to work with. We'll also set the box sizing to border box to ensure that padding and borders are included in the element's total width and height, preventing any unexpected layout issues. Finally, choose a nice, clean font family to make sure the text looks modern and readable. Now let's style the header. Set its display to flex, align items to the center, justify content with space between, and add a bottom padding of 2rem for spacing. Moving on to the logo, increase its font size to 1.5rem and add 2 pixels of letter spacing for a more refined look. Next, let's style the contact button. Set its padding to 0.5rem for the top and bottom and 2rem for the sides. Adjust the font size to 1rem give it an RGB background color, and add a star 1 pixel solid border with a matching color. Round the corners with a 50 pixel border radius, set the cursor to pointer, and change the text color to white. To make interactions smoother, apply a 0.3s transition effect. When the user hovers over the button, change the background color to a specific hexadecimal color for a subtle yet effective hover effect. And that's it for the header. Now let's move on to the next section. Let's head back to the HTML file and start working on the main content section. Below the header, create a main element, and inside it, add a div with the class name title-section. This section will contain an h1 element with the text Web Developer as the main heading. Below that, we'll create another div with the class name location. Inside the div, add a paragraph tag to showcase your location and use line breaks to stack each word on a new line for a neat display. With the structure in place, let's switch over to the CSS file to style this section. First, target the main element, set its overflow to hidden, and apply display flex with a column direction. Use justify contents between to evenly distribute its content and set a minimum height of 85 VH to ensure it takes up most of the viewport. For the title section, add a top margin of 3 rem to create some spacing. Now, let's style the H1 inside the main section. Center the text, set the font size to 12 rem, make it bold, increase the letter spacing to 5 pixels, and set the line height to 1 for a compact and structured appearance. Since this might be too large for smaller screens, we'll make it responsive later. To enhance its appearance, we'll add a text gradient effect by applying a linear gradient background with 2 RGB color values. Then, we'll change the text color to transparent and use background clip text to make the gradient fill the text itself. Moving on to the location section, we'll add a top margin of 2 rem, set its display to flex, arrange the content in a column, and align the items to flex start. For the tag inside, we'll apply the same gradient effect as the H1, but this time the gradient will run from left to right, allowing you to customize the colors to match your design. Once again, we'll set the text color to transparent and use background clip text to achieve the effect. Finally, let's set the font size to 1.5 rem. And that's it for this part. Now let's move on and start creating the bio text section. Inside the main element, create another div and give it the class name bio section. Within this div, add a p tag with the class name bio. Here, you'll describe yourself and your experience in a paragraph. To highlight certain words in a different color, wrap those parts of the text in a span element. Then, using inline styles, adjust the color of the specific text you want to change. Once that's set up, let's move on to styling. Head to the CSS file and target the bio section. Set its margin top to auto and the margin bottom to 2 rem for proper spacing. For the bio class, set the font size to 1 rem, the line height to 1.6, and the font weight to 300 for a lighter feel. Add letter spacing of 1px to improve legibility and give the text a bit more breathing room. Finally, set a max width of 22 rem to control the text's width and keep it nice and centered. Now, before we dive into the 3D element, let's add a scroll down indicator. This will be helpful if you plan to continue building out the rest of your portfolio, but feel free to replace it with any other element if you prefer. To do this, head back to the HTML file and inside the main element, create a div with the class name scroll down. Move to the CSS file and target the scroll down class. Set its height to 5 rem and width to 2 rem, and position it absolutely on the page. Place it 2% from the right and 5% from the bottom to give it a subtle yet effective placement. Add a border radius of 50 pixels to create rounded corners, and set the cursor to pointer so it's clear to the user that it's interactive. For a nice touch, add a box shadow to give it some depth and make it stand out on the page. Now, we need to add the arrows inside the scroll indicator using the before and after pseudo elements. First, leave the content property empty, as we don't need any text. Position both pseudo elements absolutely with top 20% and left 50%. Set both width and height to 10 pixels and apply a transform property with translate magnus to 50%, nade 100% slur to center them properly. To give them the arrow look, add a rotate 45 dag transformation. Add a 2px solid border with a light gray color, but to make them look like arrows, remove the top and left borders by setting them to transparent. Next, let's define the animation for these arrows. Create an animation called scroll down that will run for 3 seconds with an ease and out motion and loop infinitely. To make the arrows stack on top of each other, target the before pseudo element and adjust its top position to 30%, adding a 0.8-second animation delay so that it doesn't start at the same time as the other arrow. Now let's define the keyframes for the scroll down animation. At 0 cent, set the opacity to 0 so it starts off invisible. As the arrows move from 30 to 60% of the animation, gradually change the opacity to 1, making them visible. Finally, from 60% to 100%, fade the arrows out again, setting their top position to 90 cent to move them to the bottom of the element. This creates the smooth scroll effect you want. And now, everything works as expected. But here's where the fun really begins. We're going to add our 3D element from Spline. Spline is a powerful, user-friendly 3D design tool that allows you to create and integrate 3D elements into websites seamlessly. Unlike traditional 3D design tools that can be complex and require advanced skills, Spline simplifies the process, enabling designers and developers to build stunning interactive 3D models directly within their web projects. The first thing you need to do is sign up for an account. Once you're in, head over to the community section from the left sidebar. Here, you'll find a wide selection of 3D elements created by other users. The great thing is that you can use the remix option to modify almost any published element and integrate it into your projects. Simply choose a model you like, click Remix, and you'll be able to customize it. For this project, I've already prepared a modified version of Tim's 3D model to save time. You'll find the link to this model in the description box of this video. Click on the link, and when the page loads, select Remix to start editing. After the editor loads, you'll see the viewport where you can modify the elements. Before making changes, you'll need to unlock the grouped elements from the left side dashboard. Now, let me show you how to customize the link so that when users click on the moons, it opens your personal link instead of mine. By default, if you preview the model and click on these elements, it will redirect to my YouTube channel, but we can easily change that. The process is similar to a JavaScript click event, where you attach an event listener to an element. Our goal is to find the element that has the existing event applied. In this case, the two moons have the event, so we need to navigate through the layers. From the left side panel, open the planetary group, then expand the rotating path 2, and finally open the moon 2 group. Inside, you'll see two moons. One is embedded within the other. If you select the first moon, you won't see any events. That's because the click event is applied to the second moon. Click on that one, and now you should see the mouse down event. If, for some reason, the event doesn't appear, don't worry. Just continue with the steps, and I'll show you how to manually add your custom URL link to the model. To achieve this, start by clicking on the plus icon, which brings up an event panel. At the top of the panel, you'll notice a Start option. Click on it to initiate an event. There are a variety of events you can choose from, but for our purposes, we'll be using a mouse down event that functions just like a click event. Below that, you'll see a range of actions available, such as transitions, animations, sound effects, particle control, video, and of course, the Open URL action we're going to use today. Hover over the Open URL option, click the plus icon, and then select Open Link. This reveals the field where you can input your custom URL, say, for example, google.com, as a placeholder. Once you've added your link, close the panel and click on the View option at the top. At this point, remember that we've attached the link to the second moon, so clicking on it should now open the Google page. This approach allows you to effortlessly add links to your social media profiles, project portfolios, or any other destination you'd like your visitors to reach. We then repeat this process for the first moon. This time entering linkedin.com. And when you check the view, it will confirm that everything works perfectly. In the Spline environment, almost everything you see can be customized. You can modify colors, shapes, sizes, positions, camera angles, lighting, and even animations. The platform allows for super smooth transitions, hover effects, click-based interactions, scroll-triggered animations, and even sound effects. And just to clarify, Spline isn't sponsoring this video, but their platform is incredibly useful for us as web developers, so why not give them a shout out? Now, let's move on to customizing the colors of some elements in your 3D model. We'll begin by focusing on the nav sphere, which represents the planet in your design. On the right-hand panel, you have access to a range of styling options, such as size, position, material properties, color, Fresnel effects, lighting, and outlines. This allows you to tailor each layer's color to perfectly match your vision. Next, shift your attention to the other sphere by opening the cursor group and selecting the cursor sphere element. The process is identical. Simply adjust its color until it suits your overall aesthetic. After that, consider the particles that follow the cursor. From the right panel, select the particle emitter, and you'll notice it consists of two complementary colors. You can modify these colors as desired and then preview the changes to ensure everything looks cohesive. Now, let's examine the cube element. This component is composed of two text elements along with the cube itself. For the text, you can modify the content, adjust the size, choose a different font family, and explore several other options to enhance its appearance. If you click on the cube icon, you can change its color and material, perhaps selecting a subtle blur color to give it a unique touch. Let's take a quick look at the model. Right now, it might not look perfect since I've just randomly picked some colors, but you can customize it however you like to match your style. For now, I'll stick with the initial version. Now that we have our 3D model ready, the next step is integrating it into our website. The process is straightforward and doesn't take much time. First, click on the Remix button and wait for the page to load. Once it's ready, click on the Play button to preview the model and see how it behaves. Now head over to the Export panel, where you'll find different options to embed and share your 3D design. From here, select the Public URL option and open the Play Settings panel. In this section, you'll see customization options like removing the Spline logo, but since that's a premium feature and we're using the free version, the logo will remain visible. No worries about that. What we can do, however, is tweak other settings. With the free version, you can still hide the background, enable or disable interactions like panning and zooming, and adjust various other display settings. Once you've made your selections, scroll to the bottom of the panel and update your public URL. Next, navigate back to the Overview section and select the Viewer option. After waiting a few seconds, you'll see an embed code. Go ahead and copy it. Now switch over to your code editor, open your HTML file, and paste this code inside the body tag below all other elements. At this point, if you open your project page, you should see the 3D element seamlessly integrated into your website, bringing it to life with depth and interactivity. But what exactly is happening here? When you export a 3D model from Spline using the integrated embed code, it consists of two key elements, the Spline viewer element and a script element. The Spline viewer element is a custom HTML tag provided by Spline, which acts as a container for displaying the 3D model on your website. It includes attributes such as the model's URL and allows for interaction within the web page. The script element is responsible for loading the Spline viewer library from an external source, ensuring that your 3D model renders correctly and remains interactive on your website. Without this script, the Spline viewer element won't function properly. And that's it. With just a few simple steps, we've successfully integrated a 3D model into our website. Now let's move on and refine our design to make it look even better. The first step is to grab the Spline viewer element and place it inside the main element, giving it a class name of Planet 3D. Then head over to your CSS file and target this class, setting its position to absolute with a top value of -20 and a right value of 14%. Adjust its size by setting the width and height to 130% to ensure it fits well within the layout. Now that the positioning and size are set, let's make the design responsive for different screen sizes. For tablet devices, which typically have a screen width of less than 1400 pixels, use a media query to adjust the layout accordingly. The only thing that needs to change is the H1 inside the main element. Set its font size to 6.3 rem and remove letter spacing by setting it to 0. This ensures the text remains readable and visually appealing on medium-sized screens. At this point, our design is responsive, but only for screens wider than 768 pixels. Now, let's handle smaller screens by adding another media query for devices with a width of less than 768 pixels. To get the best result, we need to replace the H1 element with an H2 element displaying the text WebDev. Start by hiding the H1 for smaller screens by setting its display property to None. Then go to your HTML file Locate the title section class and add an h2 element inside it. Next, navigate to your CSS file and scroll down to the existing h1 styles. Directly below that, target the h2 inside the main element and apply the same styling as the h1, but set its font size to 8 rem. Initially, keep its display property set to none, but once the screen width drops below 768 pixels, set its display to block and adjust its margin top to -3 rem to align it properly. Now let's refine the bio section. Target the bio section class and adjust its margin bottom to 1 rem. Then, for the bio class, set its font size to 0.8 rem and limit its maximum width to 15 rem to maintain a clean layout. Finally, target the paragraph inside the location class and set its font size to 1.2 rem. Now, let's move on to the final styling to ensure everything looks perfect on smaller screens. Add another media query for devices with a screen width of less than 480 pixels. Start by adjusting the body padding to 1 rem for better spacing. Then, target the H2 inside the main element and reduce its font size to 6 rem to maintain a balanced layout. Next, refine the logo class by setting its font size to 1.2 rem, ensuring it's clear and readable. Finally, for the contact button class, adjust the padding to 0.4 rem on the top and bottom and 1.5 rem on the left and right, while setting its font size to 0.9 rem to keep it visually appealing and responsive. Now that everything is in place, let's check to make sure the design adapts smoothly across all screen sizes. And with that, congratulations, my friend. You've successfully completed this challenging project. If you ran into any issues along the way, if any part of my explanation was unclear, or if you have suggestions to improve the quality of my content, please drop a comment below. I truly appreciate your feedback. I'll be back soon with another exciting project. Take care and happy coding.